beautiful souls. Thank you for watching, checking in, picking your nose, whatever things you do while you listen to me. I've been told in the past that, oh, interesting. Getting a call. Okay, so I am, let's see, of course, that's distraction in there. We've still got some mercurial energies going on, but actually, what's going on largely with tech stuff is that Uranus is coming out of retrograde. And Uranus has much bigger effects over the overall energy, but the combination that we had between the Pisces full moon and the Taurus full moon, or well, almost full moon eclipse, and then we have a solar eclipse coming up here with the sun in Sag. And all that energy is coming together to be, it's funny, in some cases it is just as bad as a really deep Mercury retrograde, and in other cases it's not quite as bad, but still enough to be like, hey, like it could be transportation issues, trouble with the cars, trouble with the plumbing, trouble with phones or tech or finances, things like that. Either way, Uranus is the change bringer, the change maker, the, well, I was going to say the obstacle destroyer, but that's actually much more like Neptune. In any case, there has been several spiral cycles going on. Now, this particular message, I wasn't quite sure who specifically to lay it out for because it definitely includes twin flames, so it doesn't feel like it's only the twin flames. It feels like it's astrologically happening to a lot of people. So you might be a star seed, or you might fit into another category that you feel like is home to your spirit and your spiritual path right now. If this message resonates for you, take it. If it doesn't, click away. Find something that does. So last month, I'm just gonna say Scorpio season would have been month 21, and it was like I've been noticing that some of the spiral cycle, like it goes in like the tarot cards, the major arcana. There are 21 of them, right? Technically 22 with the Fool, but the Fool is where we have a new beginning. So we're going with 21. That's the number that Spirit has been saying is most significant. Now, Scorpio season was month 21, as in both the ending of old cycles, of 19-year cycles, and now the beginning of new cycles, right? And now what we see is that we're going backwards forwards. And so we're going counting down from 21. And when we get back to 1 and then into the zero space, we will start back over. I'm not sure for how long these cycles will exist in that specific of a number. I don't know if that's maybe a season, as astrologically speaking or magically speaking. I'm observing and learning about it just like you are. Though for right now, I'm going with it because one, it makes my life seem more magical, and two, why not? So we're coming into Sag season, and I love the connotations because in Scorpio season we had the world. And how often do you associate Scorpio with the world? Ironically, you should, because Scorpio and Pluto are all about death and rebirth, right? So it actually makes completely fitting sense that, around Samhain and the Witch's New Year and things like that, that we saw the ending of old cycles and the beginning of new cycles. Like traditionally, Celtic and Druid peoples would celebrate the end of the old year and the beginning of the new year during harvest season, whether that, depends on what tropic you're in Capricorn or Cancer. But for us in the northern hemisphere, that's October. Now, we go into Sag season and we're in month 20, which is the judgment card, right? And that's exciting for a couple of reasons. My favorite one is that there are many who interpret the judgment card as the heralding of a new quest, a new adventure, right? And then on top of that, Jupiter's going to be doing some very interesting aspects. And I love it because Jupiter is connected to Zeus, right? And Jupiter, when you look in a chart, is like somebody said once, like Mars is like your fuckboy placement. That's either, if you identify as masculine, that's like your kind of immature man sort of way. Jupiter is your gentlemanly, fatherly self. And if you are engaging with a masculine figure, then it would be the same, like, their Mars placement is how they would be kind of a player in a way, like that's their game and stuff like that, and probably their youthful self. And then Jupiter is much more their husbandly, fatherly sort of self. And so we're seeing in the month of judgment the return of the father energy, of masculine energy. And this has some very interesting connotations, especially for the collective, right? Now, after that, in Capricorn season, which I also find interestingly fitting because you don't usually see these paired together. Like Sag and Judgment, you could actually see paired together fairly well. Sagittarians, I was Sag rising too. And Sagittarians can be very judgmental, especially in unevolved energy. But even when they're in evolved energy, it's not that they stop being judgmental, it's that they become more empathetic about their judgments, so there's not so many. And they embrace that they are kind of a judge, whether you have that as a sun, moon, rising, Mars, Venus, whatever, like that it is very much a judgment place. And so that energy makes sense. And Sag also, like, is very much an adventurer. Like, I've yet to meet any specific Sages that, like, whether it's Sag dominant or Sag sun or Sag rising kind of thing, I've yet to meet any that are ever happy with, like, the status quo sort of thing. And Jupiter is about, like, Jupiter and the ninth house, which is where Sag sits, are about exploring internally first and then exploring the exterior. And Sag is definitely one of those signs and energies that if you try to put it in a box, it's like a cat or a rat or things that can sneak in between small spaces and get out and change forms and do things like that. Also, Sag's glyph is the centaur. It's actually Chiron, which is interesting too because we've asteroid Chiron, but it's the wounded healer, right? So it actually makes sense to have that in the place of judgment. And then, like I was saying, the interesting thing though is that then during Capricorn season, we're going to be in month 19, right? Because we're counting down 21, 20, 19, which is interesting because the sun card is associated directly with Leo. And we don't typically see Capricorn in that sort of energy. And this is going to be like, we're having several months of Venus in Capricorn, which, Venus goes into retrograde fairly often, but it's not often that it goes retrograde in Capricorn. And so we're going to have, we already have it in the energy of a direct Capricorn, and then it's going to go retrograde in Capricorn and then go direct again in Capricorn before it switches over into Aquarius. So already we've got very stable connotations, especially in terms of emotions, for those who have worked on such healing. For those that haven't, it's likely that they're going to be challenged by those of us that do. Now, to have the clarity of Capricorn from the Sun card, because the Sun card is clarity, it's joyfulness, it's gratitude, it's embracing your inner child, it's the strength of vulnerability, things like that. And those are all the similar elements that we see with Venus and Capricorn. Like if you have a Venus and Capricorn placement, that's something that you would see there. Then, in month 18, we're going to be in Aquarius, right? And again, like how often do you see Aquarius associated with the moon, right? And that's a very interesting thing too, because Aquarius is typically about having like a super focused lens on logic and what's directly in front of you. Not always. Like Aquarius is an interesting duality of an energy, but overall, it's Hierophant energy, right? It typically wants to be very logical and kind of avoid emotion. And so to see it go into the Moon card, which is a card specifically about emotional confusion and deception and things like that, but we have it in the 11th house, which means that it's going to be affecting us like collectively, like it's going to be revealing a whole lot of very interesting things, right? And that should be, if I've got my calculations right, about the time that we either start going direct with Venus in Capricorn or we come out of Venus in Capricorn and go Venus into Aquarius. So it'll line up again there. Now, for right now, what I'm focusing on is that we're going into month 20 with Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius is a fire sign, so to go in a fiery way to judgment energy, it's very likely that you're going to see a lot of, well, it's like instability, stability, instability, stability, instability, stability, because Sagittarius is the most mature of the fire signs, right? So it's not quite reactive like Aries, and it's not quite as emotional as Leo, though it still has it there. In fact, Sagittarians are much more known for bottling things up and then kind of going off like what is it, it's like somebody, what's the movie, The Lone Ranger? It's like an old movie, and where they kind of do a Wile E. Coyote sort of thing and like lay out a bunch of gunpowder and then like light it off, right? So it's like a slow build up, but it does go off. And on top of that, with this, it's so interesting to me to have the Jupiter energy, and the Jupiter's all about expansion, right? And because of the associations with Zeus, we also see connections to lightning, which would be lightning beings, things like that. So there's definitely, and Sagittarius definitely has Heyoka type energies, sacred clowny energies. Like, that's one of my favorite things about evolved Sagittarians. Like, they can be so much fun, even in the middle of like crises and stuff. Like, they know that laughter is sometimes the best medicine, especially when they're in evolved energy. Now, on the other side of that, so we've got some of the light energy there, right? Like positive judgment, sacred clowning, um, internal and external exploration and understanding, metacognition, expansion of the positive, and return of the father. Okay, but on the negative, or not in the negative, in the reversed sense. So like on the shadow side of things, we're also looking at Sagittarius energy when it is unevolved, when it is still immature, is so codependent, and it cares so much about what other people think. It relies very much on materialistic stuff that really, it's not really like fire signs really don't get much fulfillment from the 3D stuff. Like, yeah, having a secure place to live and things like that is definitely relevant, but Sagittarius is a fire sign. Like, it's much more about the emotions and the passion and the intensity. And then for Sag, like, I like to relate the ninth house to, let's see, Aquarius. Aquarius would be the library. So Sagittarius I had as the, like, if you had a little meditation room or like a little closet or something where you go do like yoga and meditation and things like that. You might have a couple of books in there, because by the time you get into Sagittarius energy, you've got a little piece of all the rest of those energies that go out throughout the house, right? Though when we look at the shadow, Sagittarius does not want to look at itself. Sagittarius can be very big at projecting things. It can create its own funhouse mirrors sort of situation. And because it's a fire sign, it can fizzle itself out. Like, it can create a whole bunch of ego traps because, like, think about Zeus, right? Zeus, although he was kind of the king of the gods after he defeated his own father, Kronos, he was tricked many times by Prometheus, by Poseidon, by humans, by Hera, by all sorts of different, all sorts of different beings. And the reason that Zeus was able to be tricked like that is because Zeus was prideful, and not always, and usually not in the greatest of ways. And that sort of pridefulness comes from an untamed and untrained ego. So there's likely to be a lot of phoenix moments. It's likely to be, in terms of judgment, like, think about karmic rectification, right? So if you've been in a situation where you've not been facing your shadow work, where you've been codependent, where you've been placating, where you've been bottling things up, this is likely the month when you're going to see yourself kind of pop off from that sort of stuff. And that's okay. Like, you got to get it out in order to get forward. And likewise, on the other side, you're likely to see other people getting into that energy, which is why it's so important, especially if you have done your shadow and light work, to don't ask for courage or bravery or solutions or shit like that. Just ask for inner peace. Ask for gratitude, ask for playfulness, ask for goodness and fun, no matter what situation you're in. And also, on the other end of benevolent Sagittarian energy, it's kind of that benevolence, right? Evolved Sagittarius energy can be very benevolent. It looks out for what is best for itself and for the collective. And so on the shadow side, you could see a lot of, what is it, one one for all and one for all sort of thing, like a toxic independence. Like, I could do it myself, or I don't need you, or I don't need anyone, and there's no reason to face nothing, and like that kind of stuff. And especially with judgment card energy, like when you put that in reversal, that's the kind of energy there. Like, judgment may have been weighed, and a lot of people may still be in a place of not wanting to own their own BS, right? Now, if you have either intentionally or unintentionally put yourself in a situation where judgment may be levied on you, the best thing you can do is own it. Own it, and atone for it. Not only because it's better for you and it fits in with your core values, but it's also going to be an example for a lot of people that are not in a space where they own their own BS and energies like that. And in doing that, you create small ripple effects that, yeah, it may take a little while for it to affect the direct collective of people that you care about, but it really, really matters. Like, do not undervalue little things. They add up, and they add up a lot sooner and a lot faster than big, giant leaps of faith and things like that. The other thing is because we have the mixture of the Judgment card, of Jupiter energy, and Chiron in there, the wounded healer. This is a time when you're going to start to see, it might start more in your dreams or like little signs and synchronicities when you're walking around or driving around, or the things that people say, the stuff that comes on TV, stuff like that. But either way, you're going to see kind of the beginnings of the rectification of various karmic cycles that either you're releasing or that others are releasing or that are coming in, so that you can work through them and then release that stuff, and then after that you can get stuff done the way that you want to, or after that you'll start to see more rewards of things. Either way, Sagittarius, much like Aquarius, is a lot to do with faith. Like, what do you have faith in? Whatever you believe in is true, is true. Whatever you have faith in is true. And that can include, like, if you believe that everybody will hurt you eventually, guess what you're going to see proven true? Exactly that. Even from people that you thought never would have, right? And then, likewise, on the other side, if you have faith in the goodness of people most of the time, and you know that most people are good people that sometimes get caught in cycles of doing not great things, you're going to see that that is proven true. And it's definitely a point in time when you want to remember that your consciousness is one of the most powerful resources in the world. Like, what you believe, what you think, what you have faith in, what you speak matters, especially now. All right, y'all, I'm going to leave this here. I hope you found it helpful. If not, I hope you at least found it entertaining. I love y'all, and I'll see you in the next video.